No. No. That doesn't even make any sense. Babe, somebody's wrong on the internet. Yo, it's Ivor. For those that know me, you know I've got a lot to say on the topics of training, nutrition, and performance, particularly as they pertain to the bike. And this isn't the first video that I wanted to make on those topics, but recently a video came out which had some pretty harsh things to say about TrainerRoad, and I wanted to set the record straight. So it's my goal here to talk through that video and go point by point about all the things that I think are wrong with it, and if there's anything that I think is right about the video. So let's just dive right in. The first thing we need to talk about is how we define the word intensity. If you prescribe to a 3-zone training plan, you're going to think about the word intensity a lot differently than those who go by a 5-zone training plan. So in the 3-zone training plan, intensity is basically anything in zone 2 or zone 3, and that's definitely not the case with a 5-zone training plan. Zone 2 in that 3-zone training plan encompasses both the sweet spot zone and the threshold zone. And the problem with that is that those two zones are very different in terms of the physiological response you get from training in those zones and the recovery time that it takes for training in those zones. So for example, a highly trained athlete can go day after day after day of doing 3 by 20 minutes at sweet spot, but that same athlete would not be able to recover doing 3 by 20 minutes at threshold day after day after day. So the claim that this is what all TrainerRoad training plans look like, spending way too much time at intensity, isn't really a fair claim to make when you're equating the intensity of sweet spot with the intensity of threshold. While we're on the topic of defining words, I think we should differentiate between overtraining, overreaching, and burnout. So burnout can happen for a variety of reasons. Burnout can happen because you're stressed at home, you've got too much work stress, the combination between the physical stress from your training and all of those other life stressors, it takes a toll. Overreaching, inside of that we need to talk about functional overreaching and non-functional overreaching. Functional overreaching is often built into a training plan. It pushes you above and beyond your current physiological limits, and that's what spurs adaptation, that's what makes you stronger. When you go too far, you get into non-functional overreaching, and that is what leads you on the path toward overtraining. Overtraining is a clinical issue, very serious, but also very hard to reach in a 6-week block. Oh, just a quick sidebar. If you do like cycling, nutrition, and training content, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and if you hit the notification bell, it'll tell you every time I release a new video. The next big issue I have with this video is that he seems to want to compare sweet spot training to polarized training as though sweet spot is the only thing that TrainerRoad has to offer, and that TrainerRoad wants you to be on sweet spot training forever and ever and ever, and that's just not the case. Regardless of what issues may or may not be inherent with sweet spot training, this is not a fair comparison. Sweet spot training isn't a full training plan. Sweet spot training is part of the training plans that TrainerRoad provides. TrainerRoad training plans have 3 phases: base phase, the build phase, and the specialty phase. And each phase is designed with a different purpose in mind. The goal of the base phase is to increase your aerobic engine and to prime your body and muscles for the harder work that's going to come in the build and specialty phase. The build phase takes what you have done in the base phase and then seeks to bump your power output more by working on muscular endurance as well as introducing anaerobic and VO2 max intervals. By the time you get to the specialty phase, you've built up a ton of fitness, and the goal here is not to build more fitness necessarily, but to hone the fitness that you have. So sharpening your skills, sharpening your anaerobic repeatability, and your power at VO2 max. So because this video talks so much about the perils and evils of sweet spot, I think it's only prudent that we go through the TrainerRoad sweet spot training plans. They've got 3, the low volume, the mid volume, and the high volume. Each one of those is split up into part 1 and part 2. Low volume, which is probably where most athletes who are using this platform should fall, is 3 training rides per week. Those training rides range anywhere from sweet spot to VO2 max. Some of them are over-unders. And the workouts get progressively harder as you go through the phase. So it might start at sweet spot with low duration intervals, and those sweet spot intervals increase in duration. Sometimes they increase in power. As you get later into the base phases, they start to incorporate the over-unders and the VO2 max intervals. From there we go to mid-volume sweet spot, and those see the same 3 sweet spot rides per week, but also add 2 low-intensity endurance rides. In either of those cases, if you want to add more low intensity rides, nothing's stopping you from doing that. I would caution you though, if those extra low intensity rides are causing you to struggle to hit the marks in your structured training plan, then I would say it's probably time to reassess. Maybe you shouldn't be doing those rides. Maybe you need those for mental health. And if that's the case, maybe you need to focus more on recovery. Maybe your nutrition isn't quite dialed. But there are lots of things that you can tweak and fix that don't mean throwing out the sweet spot training plan. The last one, and the one that he harps on the most, is the high volume sweet spot based training plan. And while it's accurate that it is 6 days of training per week with only 1 day completely off the bike, to say that it's 5 days of intensity isn't accurate. It's 5 days of intensity as defined in a 3-zone training plan, but this is by definition not a 3-zone training plan. 5 of the days are spent at sweet spot, not threshold. And as we've discussed before, that is a very physiologically different zone. And then you've also got 1 low intensity endurance ride per week. The riders that can handle these high volume training plans are typically highly trained athletes with many years of structured training under their belts, and athletes who have great support systems at home. These training plans take a lot of time and energy, not just the time that is called for on the bike. So while the sweet spot base high volume might say 10 hours per week of training, realistically, if you want to do that plan and do it well, you need to devote at least that much time to active recovery processes off the bike. So what do I mean by that? You need to make sure that your nutrition's dialed. You need to make sure that your sleep is dialed. You want to do what you can to reduce your outside stressors, your life stressors, your work stressors, your family stressors. And not everyone has the capacity to do that. So if you, like most people, aren't in a position to sleep 8 to 9 hours a night, eat really well, and do things like work on flexibility and meditation, breathing, and do all of that in addition to the 10 hours a week you're spending on the bike, high volume is probably not the plan for you. And you will probably get faster on low or mid volume plan. So with all that said, there are some valid criticisms of TrainerRoad. TrainerRoad, for example, is not the same thing as having a private coach. Now, a private coach is a lot more expensive than TrainerRoad, but for that money, you can get things like very personalized plans. A coach might be able to change your workout on a particular day because of how you're feeling or because of the numbers that you've been putting out. Coaches can provide individualized strategy and race tactics, and they can do that based on your personality, the way you like to race, and they can also do that based on the numbers that they're seeing from your workout. Coaches can also provide inspiration and moral support, which is huge when you're trying to work through these gut-wrenching anaerobic and VO2 max intervals. Another issue that people commonly cite when talking about TrainerRoad is that it relies heavily on the ramp test, and ramp tests just don't work for everybody. And that might be valid. Ramp tests might not be the most accurate way to get at FTP for every athlete, but TrainerRoad does offer both the 8-minute and the 20-minute variants of their fitness assessment. And it's pretty trivial to adjust your FTP inside of TrainerRoad or inside of any individual workout to reach the intensity that's desired. And the last big one that I hear all the time is that it's just blue bars on a screen and really boring. Well, yeah, okay, well, it's that way by design. TrainerRoad wants you to bring your own entertainment. Different people like to pass the time in different ways. For me, it depends on what I'm doing in terms of intensity. For recovery rides and low intensity endurance rides, I'll probably be listening to an audiobook, maybe a podcast. For sweet spot, it's generally either podcast or music. And then for anything threshold or higher, so anything with intensity, I'm listening to EDM. That's it. I just want 90 to 120 BPM of TrainerRoad is constantly iterating and getting better and evolving, trying to make up for some of these shortfalls. For example, you can always change out your workout on a given day. If you wake up and you're feeling really bad, well, maybe it's not the best day to do your anaerobic workout. Maybe you can swap that for tomorrow's workout. Definitely not the same thing as having a coach to tell you to do that, but the possibility is there. And in terms of motivation, the group workout feature is amazing. I've been a part of several group workouts now, and I can tell you for sure I would have either turned the intensity down or bailed early if I wasn't worried about saving face trying to finish the intervals. So what is it that I want you to take away from this video? Well, first of all, if you're riding a bike at all, then you're already doing something right in my book. And if you're the type of person who cares so much about different types of training that you're gonna get triggered because someone said something about one training plan versus another on the internet, well, again, I think you're doing something right because you care enough about your health, your fitness, and your well-being that you actually have opinions on these things. But I think it's important to remember that no matter what training plan you pick, no matter what training plan you decide you're going to use, the important thing is that you do that training plan and you do it well. And because training plans only work if you actually do the work and stick to the training plan, I would say that that's a huge reason to use TrainerRoad. TrainerRoad has a ton of data on the workouts that people actually complete. For example, it used to be the case that on a Sunday, the ride used to be a 3 or 4 hour low intensity endurance ride. But no one was doing that ride, so they switched it out for a shorter sweet spot ride. The aim of that ride is the same in terms of physiological adaptation, but in a shorter time window. And it turns out when they swapped that out, there was higher compliance. The workout notes for the week in your plan will say, hey, if you don't want this kind of intensity on Sunday, why not swap it out for a longer, low intensity ride? You always have that option. But again, it comes down to what you're actually going to do. All right, so there's a lot more that I could talk about, like why all of the research studies referenced in this video were short-term research studies, or the focus on getting faster. But let's just leave it at this. Training is complex. The human body is complex. I've got a lot more to say on these topics, and I assure you we'll get into them in depth in future videos. But for now, if you're a TrainerRoad user, hit me up in the comments down below. Let's get a group workout together. If you're not a TrainerRoad user and your workouts are working for you, awesome. We're all getting faster. Thanks for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll see you next time.